Hello. Okay. So, uh, um, sorry. I'm I'm still kind of waking up. Um, so I'm still having my morning coffee and everything. Um, so let's talk about what we're doing today. Um, that was annoying. Okay. Okay. So I have been doing a lot of thinking off stream. Um, I just realized I don't think we need to talk about anything before just getting into it. Um, so, yeah, I've been doing a lot of thinking off stream about like, uh, why do I care about streaming? What does it mean to me? Wait a second. Is that? Oh, it is. Oh, that's so weird. Um, Sorry, I was just noticing the colors in the image in my camera are so normal to me at this point. I couldn't even tell if I had the color correction on. Also, I feel like we can zoom out a little bit. As a teensy bit. Okay. I usually like leaving just a tiny little sliver. um, I don't know why exactly, but anyway. um, okay, so um, yeah, been doing a lot of thinking about hold on. Okay, this should be better. Um, a lot of thinking about what streaming means to me. Like, why do I do it? There was a stream not too long ago where I was saying that um, like I said, still waking up. Sometimes it just takes a minute to think of. Um, Oh yeah, I was talking about how streaming for me is about creating a space that I would want to be in, that I want to share with other people, all these different things. And that's kind of the basis of everything. And then I was doing a lot of thinking about what should I stream? Like, what's a good stream versus a not good stream? Like, and my criteria for that is, after I finish a stream, will I feel like, oh, that was kind of a waste of time? Or will I feel like, oh yeah, that was a good time, and like I got what I wanted and needed out of it. So that's the difference. And to be clear, in the time that I've been streaming publicly, I've had, honestly, I've probably had more where I've been, well, I guess I've mostly been somewhere in the middle of like, oh, there were parts that were good, and then there were other parts that were just like, maybe I just should have turned off the stream, because like nothing was really going on. And so I was thinking about what makes the difference, and I came up with a list. It's really annoying that you can't see my hands, but I can't really zoom out anymore unless I turn the camera. Gestures. Part of the problem is when I'm right here, when I'm speaking into the microphone, my hands are really low. Like, my hands tend to be below the line of sight of the actual mic. I have mixed feelings on whether I want the microphone to be in the shot or not. Anyway, whatever. We'll roll with this. I just feel kind of dorky when I'm like making hand movements and you're just like sort of seeing my shoulders move a little bit. Anyway, so I came up with a list of 3 attributes which contribute to a good stream, and pretty quickly, as I was thinking about it, I realized that they sort of create a continuous space. Like, there's like 3 things that creates a triangle, and within that, like, any given activity will exist somewhere in the triangle. So you can have something that's really kind of merging all 3 aspects at once. Anyway, I'm not going to get too far into the analogy because it does sort of start to break down, but I came up with, well, I came up with two words that started with C by accident, and then I was like, oh, well, I kind of need to make the last word a C word, because then I can call it the 3 C's of streaming. And so I guess to start out, guess. I want you to guess which word was tacked on later. So taper, which means like it's something pretty specific. Play was one of the first words I had for it, where it's not exactly either of those things. It's really about like pushing boundaries and having fun doing so. Like the sort of prototypical example in my mind when I was creating the list was I love like part of the reason I like playing games most of the time is because I'm learning the system that the game, like all games are systems. I'm learning the system and I am pushing it as far as I can to see if I can break it. And I just love the process of doing that. I don't even care whether or not I am able to break it. Just pushing things to their extreme. I just love that process. It's just inherently fun to me. The next word is cartography, or trying to turn it into a verb, cartograph. The word I had for it before was learning, but learning was like kind of too vague and also too broad, but also sort of not, I don't know, it didn't feel pointed enough. The point of cartography is that it's all about mapping the unknown. It's about assembling different ideas into a cohesive idea. So it isn't necessarily about like studying or practicing a skill or anything like that necessarily. It's pretty specifically about assembling raw information into something more meaningful. And cartography is a pretty good analogy for that. If you don't know, that's map making, basically. And then the last word is cultivate. And I really struggled with this word, finding one that fit. My first word was building. But building is like, I don't know. If you just hear building, my first thought is as a noun, like a structure, a building, which is annoying. It's annoying that seems more prevalent. Anyway, and it also didn't quite capture the essence of it. And cultivate sort of goes in the opposite direction, where a lot of the time what I mean by cultivation is that I'm building something new, like for example, oh, I just realized I don't think those streams were public, but early on when I was first trying out streaming recently, technically there was a period of time where I tried doing it many years ago, like 5 or more years ago, like 67. Anyway, like half a decade ago, I was trying streaming, but recently I started by streaming privately and not inviting anyone, and so it's basically only I could possibly see it. Even if you had a link, you wouldn't be able to see it unless I invited you to watch it. And the point of that was just to make sure that I had everything set up in a way that I wasn't going to accidentally dox myself, and figuring out what the pain points were and where I could improve those to make myself a little bit safer. Anyway, during that period, I was setting everything up. And so initially I didn't have a camera, but one of the things I was doing during that time was collecting copyright-free music. Copyright-free. It's not really... They have licenses, but just very permissive licenses, which I'm not even using correctly. But anyway, I haven't seemed to have any problems yet, but I don't know. I do, yeah, I do have a list of, I forgot about that. Why? Okay. I do have a list of credits. I should just link to that list. If I do that, then I'm not breaking any rules. I guess I just forgot. I'm gonna have to go back and... Okay. I'm gonna make sure I do that. Go back and add attributions. Okay, and then... Oh, sorry, yeah. Yeah, I was just saying, so during that time, I was doing a lot of setting the stream up, and like that was the content. I don't know, maybe it was content, maybe it wasn't. I really don't know what to make of it, but it was during that time that I first, let's see, I first drew this bird and set up the PNG tuber. So this is what I was doing initially, in lieu of having a camera. I was messing with audio levels, making sure everything worked correctly, and I was setting up the scenes in OBS, so I was just doing a bunch of like building systems. I was also messing around for a long time with an open source Stream Deck alternative. If you don't know, Stream Deck is a my understanding is it's primarily a physical device. It's like a little pad, and it has like little buttons with like each button has a tiny little screen in it, and so it can show a different icon, and you can program the buttons to do different things. So for example, you can set it up to like switch between scenes. So like here. I'm just clicking on OBS to do that. And that's just how I've been doing things, because as it stands, I could walk through the whole process of getting ready for stream. But there's like 6 different things minimum that I need to do to get everything ready. And that was just one more thing, and the connection was finicky. I didn't explain, sorry. So on the Stream Deck, they also have like little knobs, so you can like fiddle with the volume. So basically it's like a physical device that's supposed to make common operations that you need to do on stream easier. Like I mess with the volume of music a lot, and that would be nice to have something like that. Anyway, the open source alternative turns a phone or tablet into basically the same thing. So you have a program on your computer, and that communicates with your device, and your device displays the different icons, and you can choose how many icons are on screen. You can, well, the program I was using was not good. It was lackluster, to say the least. You couldn't make like sliders, which would be the alternative to having a knob. So it was all buttons, and the buttons were either like tap and hold. Well, basically those. The specifics don't matter. And then, anyway, I ended up realizing that I think it was Streamlabs or StreamerBot. It was either Streamlabs or StreamerBot that I think StreamerBot that basically has their own Stream Deck thing that you can just access from the web. And so it streamlines a lot of things, but there's most likely a little bit of delay. And then you still need StreamerBot installed, and shutter. And you might be able to just automatically open StreamerBot when your computer turns on. That might work. but I haven't messed around with it. Anyway, my point was, when I was messing with the other one, the other Stream Deck alternative, I put a lot of time into trying to program it, figuring out how that particular program worked, figuring out what I could and couldn't do, learning about OBS WebSockets, because that's how anything communicates with OBS, pretty much. OBS is the software that like captures my screen, encodes it to like make the file smaller, and then sends it off to YouTube. So that's how that works. Anyway, my point with all of that was cultivation. Like, what would you call that? It's not exactly building, but it's sort of building. Like, if I was programming a custom tool, like if I was programming my own Stream Deck alternative, I'm sort of building something, but I'm also sort of just cultivating an idea. I'm just nourishing something in reality and growing it into something, and that kind of process isn't ever really done. Where building makes it sound like, oh yeah, you make something and then it's made. But that's not really the point. The point is more about cultivating. I feel like that generally, it's also kind of an analogy that carries on. The idea is a little bit better. Anyway. I just realized none of that is theory crafting. I thought it would be quick to explain that. I don't know why I thought that. So, to me, the heart of Capers is challenge runs in video games. Like, that's the quintessential version of a caper. So I was writing about it yesterday, trying to process my ideas, making a map, a mental map of the space in my mind, doing cartography. So I started out listing out different challenges that I have thought of before, that I know I want to do. I think one I mentioned on stream was drawing an accurate map of Tears of the Kingdom, which is literally cartography. And as I was writing about it, I realized that doesn't make sense as a challenge unless I can't use the in-game maps or in-game coordinates. That would just be cheating. Then, so that's not the challenge we're theory crafting today. Anyway, so that was one challenge that I had thought of previously. And so I just wrote a bunch of them down, and I started looking at why they did or didn't work, what did or didn't work about them, and from that I was able to start extracting general guidelines about what makes a good challenge. And I've got sort of 4, sort of 6 points, like bullet points of a guideline. So one of them is more like a rule, less a guideline. It's more like a fundamental aspect is having no or low expectations. If I have high expectations for a challenge, it's not really fun. If I feel pressure to make something, like if something needs to be good, that's a bad sign. That's a really bad sign. Yeah, basically, the issue with that is capering is about play. It's about having fun. It is meant to be fun, and if I'm stressing out about it, that's not fun. It can't be fun, and so that's why it's not really a guideline. It's more like a rule. The other one that isn't exactly a guideline is it's more like a topic that tends to work well, and it's language in a very general sense of that word. If it involves language or plays with language in some way, that's generally a fun time. And I'll talk about the other 4 in a minute, but I just wanted to mention that part of the idea of doing this thought exercise, like writing out challenges I want to do, is, I think I was kind of talking about this in the last stream, how if you look at any game, and you think about different YouTubers, I watch a lot of different YouTubers, so that's what I think about, as opposed to like streamers or something. They're all going to have very different ideas about how to make interesting content from the same game. And I mentioned a few examples from Annie Austin to Doug to Reed Captain. Even within the more specific category of people who do like challenges, people come up with wildly different ideas for content. And when you watch the videos, they feel radically different from each other because each person naturally chooses challenges that align well with their personality, with their pacing, with their with them as a person, really. And so I wanted to figure out for me, so I know I like capering, I know I like challenges, so what is my version of that? So that was kind of the basis for this thought exercise. So yeah, let's talk about the other guidelines. So one of the most important guidelines, they're all pretty important, but improvisation. So I don't like challenges that require like planning, like a lot of planning and setup and like I don't like things that you're going along, you're doing the challenge, and then suddenly you hit a barrier and you just need to like power through the barrier all of a sudden. Like I don't like that. I like challenges where very much in the opposite direction, you constantly need a lot of like creative thinking and problem solving and again, like low or no expectations of like where you can have an idea, test it, and if it's bad, you just move on immediately. Like that's part of what I mean by low expectations. I'm realizing I'm not totally sure what the connection was there. Maybe it made sense, but I'm just moving on. So yeah, the next one, I called it immersive exploration. And it's a pretty different vibe. It more so describes the headspace I need to be in for a certain kind of challenge, where it's more about kind of quietly observing your environment, just processing it, making sense of it. So this is more in the vein of like Annie Austin, where like his challenges are sometimes just like trying to make sense of like how water moves in a video game, or just like observing things about NPCs to try and determine if they seem employed or not. So just things like that, where there is sort of a challenge to it, but it's more about observation and deduction and external research. Like, it's a much slower paced kind of thing. And so it's kind of in conflict with improvisation. Improvisation tends towards fast pace, and immersive exploration definitely tends towards a slow pace. Like, I actually can't imagine immersive exploration going quickly in any way. And so that's good for, you know, different energy levels. So for example, drawing a map of Tears of the Kingdom, that would be a very, like, it would be very far on the side of immersive exploration, and it would be very boring if I wanted something faster paced. But a faster paced challenge would be exhausting if I'm already tired. And so basically I have some wiggle room with how much energy I have in a given day. And then the next guideline is conceptual challenges that by their design sprinkle in lighter technical challenges. So drawing a map of Tears of the Kingdom, that would actually be a decent example of that, where a lot of the challenge is conceptual. Like, starting out, how do you draw an accurate map? Like, you could just kind of doodle, and you could try to go off of just like intuition of what feels right. But how do you make something accurate, like truly accurate? I need to go to the bathroom. Okay. I've always tried to avoid streaming at this time of day because you can start seeing light rays on my green screen, but I think it might be fun, so let's try it. um, okay. Yeah. Conceptual challenge. So, like with drawing a map of Tears of the Kingdom, yeah, like I was saying, wait, what? Hold on. I think that's wrong. Yeah. It's just because I. Oops. Okay. Interesting. Anyway. Why is that never happened? Sorry. So, yeah. It's a largely conceptual, though slightly technical challenge to draw a map of Tears of the Kingdom. It's largely conceptual in, like, I know things about math, I know things about physics, and so how do you combine all of the various concepts that you know to solve the problem of precision? Because you don't need, I don't know, I mean, if I were to do that challenge, there would be some threshold, which I try to achieve, like some amount of accuracy. And a lot of it would come down to just creative thinking, like coming up with novel ways of measuring, measuring largely, like measuring angles and distances and heights, which is just a vertical distance. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, so there would be technical challenges involved in it. Like, for example, if I decided that if I could measure like a plank of wood, what are my fingers doing? If I could measure like a plank of wood and feel pretty confident about the size of that, and then kind of use that as a marker across the land to measure things out, then I would need some way of potentially like capturing the data that I'm collecting there, and maybe I need to extrapolate it. So there's various different ideas, and part of what's so cool about such a highly conceptual challenge is whatever route you end up taking will be highly unique, because there should be a lot of different ways to do the same thing, but the technical challenges you encounter are going to be unique to the concepts that you came up with. So maybe a different idea would, like, one of the most obvious things would be if you felt that you could accurately if you felt you could accurately measure distance by running at full speed and accurately measuring the time it takes to move some distance, then you would run into different technical challenges, like how do you accurately time that? Like, you could use the video capture that I'm already producing, and you could go frame by frame, and you would need to make sure that you're using very solid reference points in the environment. So yeah, there's a lot of different angles to it, and you would probably end up combining a lot of different conceptual challenges. So yeah, and I'll talk about again, that's not the challenge we're doing today. Well, I don't know if we're actually going to get around to doing it today. The one I wanted to do, just because I'm not sure if I have the energy for it, but at the very least, I want to do some theory crafting. Anyway, and then the next guideline of what makes a good challenge for me is dexterity. I really like dexterity as a challenge. And this is sort of like language, where, like, it isn't necessary, but if a challenge involves dexterity heavily, then that alone is enough to potentially be good content. So, in general, I don't know. I feel like conceptual challenge is really the bread and butter. Like, that's really what sets me apart from anyone else that I've seen. Like, I don't know, Doug will kind of go there. But I think I have a very explicit focus on that. And so when I realized that about myself, conceptual challenge with light sprinklings of technical challenge, I realized that potentially the ultimate challenge that combines as many of these things as possible, and naturally plays to the way that I play video games anyway, is playing Tears of the Kingdom, but I can't do anything unless it's a custom challenge. So that's the official challenge. And there's a lot of caveats to that, because on its own, what does that mean? So we'll get into that, but I want to start with how does it work with the list that I've given so far? So improvisation, definitely. Like, I'm not going to, when I'm talking about theory crafting, it's not about how do I beat the challenge. It's how do I even construct this in a way that makes sense. That's what I mean by theory crafting. I can think about how this works, and I can try and set up some general like rules and guidelines that will help make sure that this doesn't go very, very far off the rails, because it absolutely could. And primarily, I would say this is a conceptual challenge. How do you, like, the through line here is I need to constantly be coming up with new challenges to progress. Like, I cannot progress otherwise. And then dexterity will obviously come into play. I don't know that this is exactly a guideline, but conceptually this is just a very funny idea to me, which is a very big plus. So then I was thinking about what could be improved about this challenge. Like, how could I heighten it? How could I incorporate more of the elements that I like? And I was thinking the challenge might not be technical enough. And I don't know, I think it might be fine. I don't think every challenge needs to be everything all at once. And besides, I feel like technical challenge, it is fairly unique to me, but I feel like I don't care about that type of challenge as much as conceptual challenges, which is why I like it to be just sprinkled in rather than the main focus. So I think this could be fine. So another way the challenge could be improved is I could expand the space of possibilities by allowing IRL challenges that directly relate to the game. So real life challenges opens up a can of worms, and I really think we need a way to constrain how that works, which is why I said that directly relate to the game. Because if it's just like, go off and do something challenging, like, then it's not related to the game at all. And it's also like, I can't really move my setup easily, so I couldn't like stream doing a lot of things. So I would like to conceptually constrain it in a way that helps it feel clear why things are happening the way that they're happening. I forgot about this, but one way I was thinking about incorporating language more heavily is I could maybe involve word games in real life. It's an interesting idea. We should explore it more. And then one of the fundamental challenges, so one of the things, so I think it was, oh, yeah, it was the last stream. I think I was wrong. I don't know. In the last stream, we played Tears of the Kingdom a little bit. And I realized how many unskippable cutscenes there are, and my understanding is that just keeps going. Like, that just keeps getting worse throughout the game. Well, not worse necessarily, but in that way, it is not like they went very much so in the direction of telling a story rather than just like being this open sandbox. And so the idea, I can't do anything unless it's a custom challenge. I think I need to include watching unskippable cutscenes. That is, in a sense, doing something. So how could I make a challenge out of that? And I think really the only thing would be doing some sort of real life challenge. The kind of stand-in idea I've had is just like, I have to balance on one leg. That's pretty boring. And also, like, you can't even really see if I'm doing it. I guess if I go like this. But I guess you can't verify that I'm not, like, just resting my leg on something back there. But yeah, word games could be interesting. I just realized that I could stay more engaged with the game if I was using the words that they said as part of the word game. But what's unclear to me about that is how do I can't. I'm having trouble imagining a word game that happens in real time. Oh god. I just remembered something that my mom used to do is when she was trying to get us to pay attention to something, she would make a list of words and as we were listening to like a fuck it. So like she wanted us to pay attention in church, and she made a list of words, and then we were supposed to count how many times each word showed up. So I could do something like that. I don't know. I feel compelled to say that I don't consider myself religious anymore, so there's a bit of context about me. I went to church at one point in my life and do not anymore. Anyway. Yeah, I was just deciding if I wanted to say that or not. Anyway, or share it, I guess. So that's an idea. It's kind of a boring idea. It could be made more fun if I choose really dumb words. Oh, bingo. I could do bingo. Sorry. Kind of bumped the microphone. I don't know if you could even just hear what I said. I bumped the microphone with my wrist. Anyway. Wait, do I have... Oh, I do. Wait, what? Okay. Anyway. I don't know why I thought I turned everything off. Okay. Yeah. Bingo could be kind of funny. We could also make it more vague. And then instead of just words, it could be, ooh, okay. Now that's an actual idea. So instead of just does something happen, it could be like, we could generalize that concept to does a condition get met? And what that means for the non-programmers in the room is we can start doing some real funky shit. We can start adding in complicated logic and that's interesting. Okay. Because my original idea for what we could do during unskippable cutscenes is, like, well, one of the things I was thinking, rather, was it seemed to me that it would need to be something that we could just start in an instant and it would just go for as long as the cutscene was happening, and then it would just like be over when it was done. But if we did this bingo board idea, then it's we would potentially need some sort of information in advance about when a cutscene is going to play, how long it's going to be, and also like generally what kinds of things come up during cutscenes. I guess there's also a question there about what exactly is an unskippable cutscene. Is it only pre-rendered? Well, do they have pre-rendered scenes, or is it happening in engine? If it is pre-rendered, I don't think I can easily tell the difference. But if we're just going off of whether something is unskippable, what about dialogue? This might be more complicated than I thought. But this is... So, the fact that there are unskippable cutscenes makes this... like, that's one of the main reasons we need to do theory crafting before we can start the challenge. Because, again, the actual challenge is playing Tears of the Kingdom, but I can't do anything unless it's a custom challenge. And that includes watching cutscenes. And part of the problem with unskippable cutscenes is you can't even pause the game, as far as I can tell. Well, I guess you could go to the home screen. That would be like a last resort. And I think that does pause it. We can maybe test it. It would be kind of annoying to test. I don't know, it shouldn't take long, I guess. I already have everything set up. Yeah, let's try it. Okay. Last time I was doing this, it was taking an annoying amount of time to connect the Switch. I just have a really shitty dock. It's like third party and okay. So let's do new game. Sure, I don't care. And then Nintendo presents. Okay. And I would assume. And screen fade. Legend of Zelda. Legend of Zelda. Okay. Now we can just close it, I guess. Okay, so that works. Okay. Yeah, when I was writing this yesterday, I forgot that that was a failsafe. Oh, I also forgot about the gallery. Like that you can take screenshots and videos. Although, can you always do that? I think sometimes applications can turn that off. Because that would be one method of interaction. I don't think there is literally anything else you can do during cutscenes. I like this picture. Oh. Um, okay. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So my first idea with taking pictures was you could, or screenshots. It was basically the same idea as the bingo board, but you can make it more like precise by saying you have to take a picture at the exact right moment as like proof. So, okay. One of the things we kind of need to clarify is the way I was thinking about this challenge is something I can't decide is, well, I guess what it is, okay. So I'm kind of imagining two separate things here. So one type of challenge is you try to do it, and if you fail to do it, then you get a negative point, and like these are just like points that we're keeping track of. I don't know why fucking Shutter. I swear to God, it's random. Anyway, yeah. So if you fail to do something, then you lose points. But if you succeed at doing the challenge, then you gain points. And that way, even if you accidentally create a challenge that's impossible, you're just losing points, and then you can make it up later by completing challenges. And so one of the ways, so I've kind of been burying the lead here a bit because one of the first ideas I had is one of the first like custom challenge ideas was you can't move. And what I mean by that is like having your feet on the ground in one place and then having your feet on the ground in a different place. So that's kind of the way we would measure it. I guess swimming would be kind of weird, but that's okay. I don't think we need to count swimming. And at first I was like, oh, that's just so obviously impossible. But then I had the idea that you could just lose points every time that your feet are in a different position, which does mean we have to count how many steps I take, which is kind of annoying, but eventually I realized, like, this is Tears of the Kingdom. It's not Breath of the Wild. Like, you can absolutely make cars and flying machines. And so it actually is not that unreasonable for most of the game. And actually, I don't know what the percentage is. Like, if you're doing like story missions and stuff, I assume you can't take your inventions into story missions, but I don't know. But assuming you can't, that would be an issue. potentially. But my hope and belief is that Tears of the Kingdom is so flexible in general that it will end up being largely possible to not move around. And so I'm pretty set on that being one of the first challenges. And part of the reason I love it is you're almost certainly going to build up a lot of debt early on, like point debt. And like one of the crucial things about that, like, it wouldn't matter if you could just, like, you know, if the points didn't mean anything, but you need to, like, be in the black. You need to be positive, positive point-wise in order to beat the game. If you beat the game having negative points, it just doesn't count, and you have to beat the game again. So that is the official ruling. And so it creates this funny situation where you start the game and you're just losing points, and the only way to gain more points is by coming up with interesting challenges that you need to do, and you're basically you're like working your way out of debt, essentially. And I assume nobody has watched or will go back and watch the last stream. But during that, when we were playing Tears of the Kingdom, I said I assume nobody has. I know nobody has seen that stream. Anyway, but during that stream, I started jumping from a higher platform and going down to a lower platform, and the height was such that if I landed on the ground, I died instantly. And I managed to like grab onto a wall as I was falling to slow myself down. And so I managed to make my way down to that platform without getting hurt, by kind of doing this trick shot. And so that's an example of the type of challenge that I would want to do throughout the game. Like, I did that before coming up with any of this, before coming up with this challenge. And that's just genuinely how I like playing games. I like coming up with stupid challenges to do, and just doing it until I just like prove it's possible. It's just fun. But then it creates a problem because in practice, I saw how that worked. And so if I said, I would have to formalize the rule in some way. Like, if you're standing on the ground and you jump off a cliff toward an area in which it's far enough down that you would die if you hit the ground, but if you manage to grab onto a wall to save yourself and save yourself. So something that kept happening is I would grab onto the wall too late, and Link would just slide all the way off and fall into the void anyway. So you need to actually save yourself. But if you do that, then you would get like, I think you would have to get like 50 points or something, which might seem like a lot. But part of the problem is the way that I defined not moving is where your feet are. And as you're climbing back up, your feet are touching in different places. And so you're going to lose like probably at least 20 or 30 points just climbing back up. And you need to be in the positive. Like, it would be so dumb if there was just no way to gain points. Yeah, so those are I'm kind of playing my hand here. Those are the challenges that I've already come up with, which will probably come up in actual when we start the challenge. So part of the thing here is I've played basically through the intro of Tears of the Kingdom before, and that was a long time ago. So I don't fully know what to expect. I've seen some people play it, so I vaguely know what's possible. I vaguely know the areas of the game. But not nearly enough to not end up making challenges that end up just being bad. Okay, hold on. I have to go to the bathroom. so bright. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, so like I was saying, jeez. Because I don't really know, I don't fully know what to expect from the game. I will most likely make really dumb challenges or make the point values just kind of nonsensical. Oh, okay, hold on. I just realized something. So I was bringing up the two types of challenges. The first one is beat the game without moving. And because I know I'll end up having to move a lot, I would set the negative point value like probably just as low as possible. So -1 point every time I move. And then there's the other type of challenge where I gain points by completing it. That's the issue. The difference between them is there's not really a win condition for beating the game without moving, because once I fail the challenge, I'm losing points, yeah, but beating the game shouldn't still give me points because I didn't beat the game without moving. There's not like a consistent way to like gain points from doing something. I'm just always going to fail, and the question is just how badly I'll fail. It is kind of funny to have just one of those. So I'm constantly racking up debt and cost just by existing, basically. It is so funny to have one of those. But yeah, there's not really a win condition. On the other hand, what I was thinking about the challenge I brought up of like saving yourself from falling by grabbing a wall, there is a win condition, but the lose condition is unclear. In the example, in the real example from 2 days ago, when I was playing Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, I kept falling in the void, or I kept hitting the ground and dying. Like, should dying or should falling in the void just as a baseline remove points? It feels like it should. So that means every time I fail to do the trick, I'm losing points. And it took me like... It probably took me around 20 attempts And so you combine that with the like 20 to 30 points that I'm going to lose by actually succeeding and then like climbing back up the wall. I would need to get like, well, I would basically be breaking even, except probably worse because just like walking over to the edge would be costing me points. Once I'm at the edge, each time I die or reload a save, that doesn't count as moving. I just had a weird idea. I want to test it. Hopefully it didn't delete all of my saves. Because I just need to get to a point in the game where I continue. Okay. So I just want to try something here. By the way, I don't want to do too much in-game testing without consequences. Like, part of the fun of the challenge is I need to do testing, and that testing is going to cost me. Let's try something. Okay, I'll try and do one step forward, a jump, and then pause. Right down. Okay. Let me try that again. Shit. Okay, whatever. Well, I don't know. Is this fine? Wait, hold on. So... This is gonna be a rough challenge. Okay. Then I go here, save, save, load, load. This is the test, by the way. It puts you back at the last place that you were standing on the ground. Okay, good to know. I don't think that's helpful for anything, but good to know. Yeah, that literally wouldn't help anything. Okay. Okay, sorry. So I was going in a direction, and then I realized I needed to step back a bit. But what I was going to say was, most likely I'm going to come up with challenges that just don't make sense in a really, really bad way. Like, if I did something really insanely dumb, just like, okay, so just illustrating a point here. If I said every time I move, I lose 100 million points, the game is essentially unbeatable. Like, I will be so far in debt. The only way out of it would be to make to create a challenge that gives me back gazillions of points, and that's just not interesting if I can just change the stakes at any time. So if I mess up really, really badly like that, rather than well, I would never do that, I guess. And even I don't know. I guess if I somehow did that, then let's just assume that I realize my mistake before I take a single step, okay? Then what happens is in order to maintain the stakes of the situation, I should never be able to take back a challenge. Well, not never, actually. Specifically, if I mess up really badly, there's a few different things that can happen. So I can lose, like, I think it would have to be like 10,000 points, like something really painful, but that is possible to come back from. So I lose like 10,000 points in order to change the value that's associated with failing a challenge. So I could change it from losing, 10 billion points every time I move to losing 1 point. So I could change it to anything I want. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe the more I change it, the more it costs me. And if something is negative, it has to stay negative. Like, I couldn't change it to start being positive. Like, that just shouldn't be possible. If I need to change the challenge itself, I think that needs to be insanely expensive, like negative 100,000 points. Like, it needs to be so costly that it's almost never worth it, and that you should just deal with it. And so both of these rules incentivize being pretty careful about what rules you start including, because there's pretty heavy consequences to needing to change it. So again, this way I'm never technically stuck. Now, part of the issue, it's the same thing with that might solve the issue. So one of the things is, like, if I can at any point create a challenge that's super easy for me, and even if I only get like 1 point from it, like one positive point, but I can do it super, super consistently and quickly, it trivializes the challenge. So, because then I could lose points to basically anything, and it would be kind of annoying, but it would just be like beating the game with slightly more steps. Because then I could basically ignore any challenge. So the challenges that give me points, they need to be constrained somehow to values that keep it interesting. And a lot of this, I was assuming, would just come down to good sportsmanship. Like, I want the challenges to be fun, and part of the issue is like, if I create a challenge and it's like just too much, like there's just too many things happening, like on its own it might have been fine, but combined with all the other challenges, it's just not fun anymore, then I want a way to remedy that without losing the stakes. And something I thought of is, I don't know if it makes sense, but what if it costs points to create new challenges with win conditions? So in our theoretical example that we've been kind of constructing of every time you move, you're losing points, you would be put even further in debt by creating the challenge of saving yourself from falling by grabbing a wall. And theoretically, if you did it over and over, I guess it's also odd. Like, I feel like it should be fine to just like to be able to grind points by saving and reloading. So in our example, wait, that would actually be weird. So if you could get like 50 or like, I don't know, 75 points from saving yourself from falling by catching a wall, then every time you succeed at the trick, without even climbing back up to the top, you could just reload a save, and that would count as moving, because your feet were in one position and then they were in a different position. Like on the ground in one position and on the ground in a different position. So you would only lose 1 point, and then we wouldn't need to have it be like adding 75 points. Plus, that's like, that was only one very specific scenario where the only way to survive was to climb back up. But in most of the game, if you're just like going into the depths, or you're like on a mountain, and I'm thinking about like the dual peaks, if you like jump from one side to the other, like if you were headed down anyways, you don't need to go back up, and so it doesn't need to give you like 75 points. That was just to make the specific Sky Island scenario make sense. See, this is the thing. We need to kind of think all of this through. How do we... Because the easier a challenge is, the less points it needs to give you, or rather, the less points it should give you. But how do we measure the difficulty of a challenge? Especially if in one situation, like on the Sky Island, that was a really hard trick. But on Dueling Peaks, like, it's almost trivial. Like, there's just a huge face on that side. Like, it's just a completely different scenario. And I think going into the depths, I've never gone into the depths, even when I played before. But my understanding is there's just like a hole in the ground, which would also just be super easy to jump from one side to the other. In most situations in the game, that's just not going to be a very difficult thing. So how do you judge the difficulty? Should I allow myself to get more points for the situation in which it is difficult? But how would you manage that? How would you make sure? Part of the challenge with coming up with this challenge is also, I want to make sure that it's very easy to communicate what's happening. Like, if someone, God forbid, those are just the words that came to mind. If someone shows up while I'm doing this challenge, I want them to really quickly understand exactly what's happening, exactly what the stakes are, and exactly the point I'm at. Like, they should, on screen somewhere, like maybe down here, see how many points I have. They should understand that if it's like red and it's like negative, that means I'm in debt and I need to do challenges to, like, basically it's fine to have a lot of little nuances to the challenge, but the key is that anyone who's tuning in for the first time has a pretty good sense of what's going on. So, okay. That kind of brings me to another point, which is part of part of what makes this challenge interesting to me is it's not just that I'm doing all of these challenges simultaneously. It's also that I need to find a way to clearly communicate to the audience what's happening and like what challenges are in play, how many points do they give me, how far am I in the challenge. I want all of those things to be immediately obvious. And yeah. So that's kind of how I would incorporate like language, as like, how do I communicate what the challenge is, what the stakes of the challenge are, that kind of stuff. Okay. I'm gonna try and I think I'm gonna have to take a break soon, but I wanna get through this last stuff. It could be interesting to introduce real financing, like concepts. Like maybe I could go into bankruptcy, so the slate would be wiped clear, but then I was gonna say I would get like less points from completing challenges. Maybe it would be that, but I think it might actually be easier to make the cost of failing challenges higher. Because if I get like 1 point from completing a challenge, and then I need to make that smaller, I'm going to start getting into decimals. And so it's generally going to be easier to like double the negative points. But that would also, I could just say that I go into bankruptcy right before I complete the game, and that would trivialize everything, because I'm at 0, I'm not negative. Which I guess I could get around that by saying I have to have a certain number of positive points to beat the game. So not just in the black, but maybe I have to have like 1,000 points or something. Like maybe not something super crazy, just, you know. Yeah. It's interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to keep thinking about it, and I will keep thinking about it, but in the meantime, I'm gonna take a break, and I'll be back in a while, probably like 30 minutes, hard to say for sure. Yeah. Am I back? Hold on. OBS just crashed. Are we back? Okay, we're back. I'm gonna try that again. I'm gonna be back in a while. So I'm just